I was just reading something. Apparently, there was a game scheduled on the 4th of October between Juventus and Napoli.
Yeah.
And Juventus couldn't show up. Napoli couldn't show up. So they gave Juventus a score 3-0, and they punished Napoli. Like, they deduced a point from them just for
1 point?
Reporting earlier or something. I think so.
Do you know about why they couldn't make it?
Coronavirus!
It was because of COVID, I think. Like, the health authorities banned them. It wasn't even a club decision.
Yeah, the local health authority, I think, from their region or state or whatever.
Which is interesting. Like, you just have, like, even more factors affecting, points. And, like, it wasn't even their decision. So, yeah, I guess we'll be seeing a lot of that coming up in a lot of the leagues.
Yeah. But it's incredible that they didn't make an exception or they didn't allow, to postpone the match. Like, fair enough, it was last minute. I think it was the day before that the health authorities stopped them, but it wasn't a club decision.
Are they going to appeal?
Surely they will.
I'm not sure.
I'd try and appeal that. That seems outrageous.
I'd sue the league if I were them. Like, that's completely outrageous.
Speaking of COVID,
Coronavirus!
And Juventus, Ronaldo is now confirmed to have COVID.
I can't believe it. I wish the best of luck to COVID. I hope COVID has a quick recovery after getting through his machine of a body.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna completely crush the virus.
Yeah, I don't think he's at risk. Hopefully not. Anyway.
Hopefully not. Yeah. I mean, I think the virus itself needs to go on quarantine 14 days after leaving Ronaldo's body.
Apparently, his wife is ranting on Instagram. She's like, "This is a sham. People need to open their eyes.
Wake up, sheeple.
And like, I think she's particularly disappointed that apparently there's a game scheduled between Juve and Barca during his period where he has to isolate.
Ooh.
Yeah, so he's going to miss a match against Messi. But yeah, like, just her words, and like, she's kind of doubting the whole thing, and she's saying people need to open up their eyes. She's just like turning the whole thing.
She thinks it's a conspiracy?
Coronavirus conspiracy. I think so.
Oh my God.
Like, at least she's like hinting at it.
I mean, it's just a giant hoax.
Oh my God.
She thinks that someone gave Ronaldo COVID so that he would have to isolate and miss the Barcelona match. Is that what you're thinking?
Oh, no. Man, that's taking it way like into higher levels.
I'm just taking it to another level, right?
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that?
No, I just think that. I think she just, like, her words might imply that, it doesn't. He doesn't need to isolate and not play, and like this whole thing is exaggerated.
That's even worse.
People need to open up their eyes. I mean, I'm just assuming here, but maybe
It's a contact sport. Like, it's so dangerous to have someone play while
Coronavirus!
being able to pass it on to other people. It's because there's a lot of contact. There's a lot of close contact.
I reckon you could actually have a good team right now of all the players who have COVID-19. Like,
You'd have a
build
superstar team.
I guess there's a FIFA team out there called like C19 or something like that.
Mane, Thiago, Ibra, Ronaldo.
But would you actually put Ibra? But would you put Ibra on that team? Because I think like, it was a false positive the first time he tested.
Oh.
Yeah, like, he tested a few days later and it turned out to be negative.
Oh, that's good.
Who?
Either like he actually scared off coronavirus with his tweet, or he didn't actually.
Yeah. Ibrahimovic.
Nah, he's a lion. Yeah, you'd have a good team. I just don't know any good keepers who've got COVID. It seems like the keepers are...
They kept clean sheets.
They kept clean sheets.
Do you think that's something to do with wearing gloves?
Because they're wearing gloves, huh?
Yeah, well, firstly, should we introduce our first ever guest to the show? Very exciting to have B on the show. What's up, B?
Our main boy.
Yo. Thank you, guys. First of all, congratulations for having this podcast. It's been really, really great. Like, the topics you've chosen so far are really interesting. They've been just really enjoyable to listen to. I mean, the second, third, and fourth were just really great episodes. Just the first one, man.
The first one
was the best.
Wow.
Wicked casting.
We haven't managed to reach those heights again, though. I don't think episodes 2, 3, and 4 have been nearly as good as the first one. But hopefully, this time we can exceed it, maybe.
That's too much pressure on me to do, I guess.
What's cool is that this one is the very first unscripted or like unresearched episode, because we've all been busy this past week. Nobody had enough time to like research a full topic, so we decided to have like an impromptu, just a discussion about our predictions. Since the transfer window shut, we've been talking about this for ages, about wanting to do a whole, basic football prediction, a whole roundup. So we thought we'd get our main man B, the football expert, to help us sort through what to expect, what we can expect for this season.
Yeah, again, no pressure, huh?
No pressure, no. Just to have
The
a third
football expert.
a third brain, I suppose, to like think out loud with us.
Now, both me and F saw that and said we both think they both should have got sent off. And Rashford was making that exact point, and Maguire was like, no, the referee got it right, he's had a look at it and it wasn't violent conduct. And it just seemed to me like not something a captain would say, and you would expect the captain to be making the case. I mean, F is a neutral. He thought it was a red card for Lamela. I am a United fan. I was screaming, and Harry Maguire was shouting at Rashford. I just didn't think it was a very... For me, he didn't seem like a captain. And hearing him talk like that, I didn't get the captain vibe. And something that's interesting, he wasn't even captain at Leicester City. So imagine coming to Manchester United within 1 year, getting the captaincy. It just shows the lack of leadership in the club.
And weren't there rumours that he had a big falling off with Bruno, I think at halftime during that match? He had a shouting contest.
At the moment, there's so much, and maybe we can start with United and where we think United are going to do this season. But at the moment, there's so much rumours of fighting in-house, and there's rumours of Pochettino, being part of Ed Woodward's plan. For me, this transfer window's been an absolute disaster for us. The Jadon Sancho conversation started 6 months ago.
More than a year ago, even.
I mean, 18 months ago we were talking about
exactly.
But 6 months ago we were talking about this specific deal for this transfer window. And the fact that two clubs, United are silent, but all the journalists, everything at United gets leaked. That's just something that I know about this club. Anything that's internally is going to get leaked. And I think one of the main journalists was Fabrizio Romano. I think he did like 15 "here we go" tweets. And if you don't know who Fabrizio Romano is, his like "here
Twitter
we go"
famous
tweets is legendary. And he doubled his followers from this Jadon Sancho. He started 1 million followers. Now he's got 2 million. He had 15 "here we goes." Here we go, personal terms are agreed. Here we go, agents' fees agreed. Here we go, they're talking to each other. Here we go, someone texts some. And it just dragged on. And the longer it went, the more you knew that this probably wasn't going to happen. And we probably didn't have a backup plan. And on the last week, we get Cavani and we get 2 young wingers. And I like the young wingers that are coming in. They Pellistri and Traore. They look really good, but they're not for this season. They're probably not even for next season. We're thinking 3 to 5 year plan for these guys. And there was no plan. We didn't back the manager. And there's a systemic pattern of a manager comes in, big boost, gets you into Champions League. Summer transfer window, doesn't get any targets, gets random targets that like make no sense, overpay, offer contracts to existing players on crazy money for 5 years, which means they're impossible to sell. Then you complain that we're paying the most out of salaries. Our salaries are insane for such terrible players. I don't think any other big club owns a gang of just terrible players that no other club would want to touch. It's insane to me. What the club policy is going to be. Then that second year in the Champions League, there's more games. The squad isn't good enough. They start to drop in the league, 5th, 6th, 7th, manager goes, new manager comes in, wash, rinse and repeat. Now you've seen Mourinho, Van Gaal, Oli. Are they all terrible managers or are they just not getting backed? I mean, I don't, if I put it back to you neutral, What do you guys think about Manchester this year? And
I think it's a little bit of both.
yeah, top four would be a dream for Manchester this year, and that's annoying considering last year we finished third and we want to kick on and get closer to the top two clubs. I feel like already we're,
Took a
one
step
of the
back.
worst performing, major steps back. Like right now we're like 17th, 18th in the league. It's insane.
So it's interesting because the thing about Oli is that, like, he wasn't hired because of his tactical acumen. Surely, he's not much of a tactical wizard.
You're a wizard, Harry.
It was mostly kind of a morale boost, a sort of cheerleader role. And we're talking about how morale is down and there seems to be a lot of disharmony in the team. So do you guys think that Oli will finish the season as coach?
I mean, I really find it hard to do it, and I don't think it's going to be his fault. They really should have invested in that finish last season where they really had three players on form: Bruno Fernandes, Rashford, Martial. They were doing so well.
Yeah.
And they really needed to build especially around Bruno Fernandes. Like, he came in mid-season and had a tremendous difference in the team. But like the way that the whole problem between Bruno Fernandes and Maguire was handled, and like how Bruno was basically, I think he went off then. To be honest, you need to give that player much more respect. And obviously there's a lot of politics involved. There's, structural problems within the club, how they manage it, how they manage transfers. Oli is just going to be a scapegoat to give an impression that they're changing things. And I don't know, there's a balance when you want to get a coach between characteristics of someone who has enough reputation within the club, who knows how to manage the different players, has their respect, but also has that tactical ability. Yeah. Oli, I think, had really the former. We don't really know much about the latter and his tactics. What happened towards the end of last season was just, a good run of games and form and just gelling between those three players. Yeah, there's just a whole structural problem. But fair enough, if Solly doesn't have that tactical ability, you can try to complement that with the assistant coaches. But what you really need to do is just focus on the squad makeup. You just can't have a summer like that pass without improving your squad. I know a lot of clubs try to blackmail United with knowing that they can pay higher fees for players, so they end up just really raising their asks. But United should have just went for it. It was, they went for desperate buys. I know they're exciting young players. There was 2 players that they got on transfer deadline. But if they really want to do a desperate buy, just put the extra cash and buy Sancho. It was a much need.
Is Cavani going to be the next Sanchez? Do you think he's going to have an impact? I don't think they bought him to start, surely. I think he's just a rotation option. But what's your expectations?
Yeah, one of the young wingers, is Uruguayan. Cavani is obviously Uruguayan. I don't think United are clever enough to have planned that at all. I think that's just a happy accident. So I think that will help. Obviously, Palestri's introduction to England. England's not always an easy place for South Americans to come in and thrive. So I think having a legend like Cavani, who you look up to in the club, a senior player. Has Cavani won a Champions League? I don't think he has, but he's been in finals and he's experienced in the latter stages, quarters, semis of the Champions League. I hope he brings in a winning mentality. If nothing else, a winning mentality to the team and sets the standards. And going back to the previous point, do you think that Oli is going to see the end of the season? I don't think so. I think you need something new. Pogba isn't happy, Bruno's not happy, Maguire can't kick a ball and can't see 5 yards in front of his face right now. You got Donny van de Beek, who looks really good, but no one knows how to fit him into a team with Pogba and Fernandes. You have no one on the right-hand side who's a natural player. You have Cavani, Igalo, who both, I feel should come on in the last 20, 30 minutes of games, play in the EFL Cup games. They're your second string strikers. And Cavani is there to, assist, Mason Greenwood's progress. And there's a lot of young players. So I think bringing someone more experienced is fine, but it's a desperate buy. It's huge wages for 2 years. He hasn't played soccer or football in 6-7 months. He's not been with a team for 7 months. How fit is he going to be? He's going to miss the Newcastle match. Is he going to play against PSG after not training with the team and not playing football for 7 months? Do you play him against, one of the best teams in Europe just to get, I don't know.
And it's sad because the thing is, if Oli is sacked, then it appears as though Poch is going to be the replacement. And I'm so like, no offense to United, but like, I'm so sad that if Poch ends up at United, because for me, he's at the top tier, like top 3 coaches, I think, today. Poch is up there. And for him to go to a club, I mean, no disrespect to the club in itself, but the structure, like to be working under Ed Woodward, not having any, support from the board, it would be such a shame for someone with his talents. Like, you can only do so much as a coach if you're not getting supported, you know what I mean? Even if he's a tactical mastermind.
But also, you raised something I hadn't thought about before. Oli, we know, is a really nice guy. So, like, fitting into a structure that he knows isn't working, we don't know that Oli is really trying to, like, vie for his power or, like, trying to change anything within the structure. Pochettino, like, he's a strong character. And, like, towards the end of his time at Tottenham, he was, like, making... blunt remarks about the structure of the club.
Yeah.
Exactly, how he wants to have more authority in his hands. He actually even once said in a press conference, they should change my title and just, call me
coach instead of
head
manager.
Coach or something. Yeah. Coach instead of manager, exactly. So I think having someone like him in that position to challenge the structures within the club might be actually a good thing.
But surely you had that with Mourinho. Like, Mourinho is a strong character. Mourinho always politicked. I think he got the director of football at Madrid. He got him fired. When he was that's how evil he is. But
if I speak, I am in big trouble, and I don't want to be in big trouble.
It didn't, at United he just turned bitter. He turned sour.
What was the result? 3-0. 3-0. Do you know what this means? 3-0. But also mean 3 premierships, and I won more premierships alone than the other 19 managers together. 3 for me and 2 for them. Respect, man, respect.
Like, because it's such a...
But you know what happened with Mourinho? Like, coming into Real Madrid, he had the leveraging power to say, if I'm going to come in, these are the authorities I want.
Yeah.
It's much easier for a coach coming in new to the position to actually demand what he needs. Because the club need him basically at that stage. It's much harder to start calling for changes when you're towards the end of your tenure and things aren't going so well as was happening with Poch.
Very true. And I think United do appreciate how good and how, he's the best coach on the market, and he's, like I said, in my opinion, top 3. So like, I think he does have, his stock is high enough that he can leverage as a starting point and say, these are my conditions.
It's another failure if he comes in, though. As happy as I would be that we have a top-class manager, and even I think I'm not as convinced about Poch as you two are, and it makes me excited to hear that you guys rate him so highly. But it's a complete fuck-up. You fucked up the transfer market, so the only way you're going to save it is firing your head coach, your manager, and bringing in someone else.
But honestly, even if things change, I still don't see United probably even making it to top 6.
Yeah, even if they get Poch, to be honest.
Top 6,
I mean, look, you have Everton and Leicester who are, because you always have that underdog club that's, that's taking one of the places of those top 6. I feel like one of them might actually make it. And then you have the established clubs. Even though Liverpool City might not be completely on form, they're going to be up there, definitely.
Arsenal, Spurs are much better this season than they have been.
Arsenal under Arteta are so exciting. Even though they haven't, you look at their squad and you're like, what are they going to come up with?
Yeah.
But man, Arteta is a mastermind. The ones he's had since towards the end of last season and even starting this season are just amazing. And Tottenham have had some really good buys. They've been really active in this market compared to others.
Yeah. So it really looks like it will be tough for United. One last question about United before we move on. I felt a big weakness point has been Matic. So obviously the defense is sort of an unsolvable problem for now, but the midfield. So Matic, I think Matic was a big reason why since the restart United were probably the best in last season, the best team in the Prem, and I think the triumvirate of Matic, Pogba, Bruno were so good, but he's obviously lost a bit of pace. He's not doing. He's not on the best form. Can Fred or McTominay replace him? Should they replace him? Will that make any difference? I know they're kind of different. They're not really holding midfielders. They're more box to box, both of them. Their profiles, but surely would that freshen up?
Yeah, it's not a Premier League winning midfield. That's the problem with that. You can win games. You can beat teams with McTominay, he's not going to lose you a team. But then you play the top teams in Europe, and is McTominay going to live with Barcelona, Juventus, Manchester City, Liverpool? That's where it's those fine margins in soccer and football where you need. That's such a key position. You have someone like Kante. If you brought him into Manchester United, that would make a huge impact. Matic on his day makes us play really well, but we have no real depth. He can't play 2 games in 2 weeks. That's the problem with him.
Yeah.
I was just quickly Googling how old Matic is. He's only 32 years old, so he's not that old. But he does give you this feeling that, his age is starting to take a toll on him.
He was slow before, that's the thing. He was slow already.
He was never a fast
slower.
player, that's the thing.
Yeah.
What he does do really well is his reading of the game. And I feel like him being alongside Pogba used to give him guidance. But like when Matic isn't playing well, then Pogba just becomes completely lost like a stray dog in the field. And there's a massive problem with that.
Yeah.
All right, boys, where do you think United are going to finish then? B, you go first.
Like I put them 8th, 9th.
8th and 9th. F?
Yeah, probably maybe 6th or 7th for me.
All right, I'm always an optimist, boys. So we can play this again in about 7 months' time and see how far up. Okay. I think we'll get top 4, and I think we'll be outside of the top 4, most of the top 4, but I think we'll bring it in. And I think that will only happen if we get rid of Oli and we bring in Pochettino.
Or Allegri maybe, or like some of the...
Yeah, we need a big change. And then I think I was just looking at Everton's team because I think you guys both think Everton might do better than United, which I think right now on form looks like you're right. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. I'm just looking at their team. Their team's not that special. I think they're just on very, very good form and they're on a high. The season is long and the season...
This season in particular is going to be very long.
It's going to be very long. They've got their midfield, they've got a few good players. They've got Sigurdsson, but I don't... the other players, they're not top 4 players. Tom Davies isn't a top 4 English club player. Andre Gomez, Fabian Delph... Alan is new, right?
Alan is definitely... Alan is a Premier League winning midfielder. I'm gonna say it right there. I'm gonna spoil, since we're on the topic, I'm gonna spoil my pick for signing of the season. I picked him as prediction for signing of the season. Yeah, he was a beast with Napoli, and I think Rodriguez is getting all of the merits, but I think Alan has been the turning point for Everton.
What's his position?
Holding midfield.
Mm.
So he's not a young man. Why have we... Has he been sort of just an unsung hero at Napoli? Is that why?
Yeah. The thing about... I think defensive midfielder is sort of one of the least appreciated positions in football. So...
No.
And yeah, I think no one picked him up. And also I think he was a late bloomer, to be honest. I only started noticing him as a top player in the past 2 years maybe. So since he was if he's 29 now, since he was 27 perhaps.
And does he play for Brazil? Does he start as number 6 for Brazil? Because I can't think of a great number 6 who plays for Brazil. I always feel that position is relatively weak.
You know what? I think they have the best defensive midfielders in the world. They have Casemiro, they have Fabinho, they have Fernandinho, they have... I can't think of any other nationality that has such elite level holding midfielders, right. And because there's a lot of competition. You're basically competing with the creme de la creme of the world. So
it is a boring position though, isn't it? All those players are fantastic, but you wouldn't watch a highlight reel of Fabinho, and they're just
There's nothing I love more than a good defensive midfielder. That's my favorite position. If I play football, that's the position I want to play because it's just intelligence. It's just tactical intelligence, reading the game, making right decisions at the right time. And you're the fulcrum of the entire team, defensively and offensively. And it's so underrated as well.
All right. Well, Alan is one to watch this year. That's F's pick for the most... What was the category?
Signing of the season. My prediction.
Signing of the season. Wow.
So let's go back to starting from the top. So Liverpool. The first talking point I have is Thiago, obviously probably signing of the season on paper, one of the best midfielders in the world. I think he's going to be very important against small teams. So when Liverpool need to keep the ball, they need to keep possession. They don't have a midfielder of that profile before. All of their midfielders are sort of hardworking players, and so to have someone as good as Thiago and with that skill set, which is quite unique to Liverpool. I think against smaller teams he's going to be quite important, and I think against like tougher teams where Liverpool usually have like three box-to-box, three defensive-minded midfielders, they might play him. I thought about this a lot. They might play him and then sort of reduce the attacking role of one of the fullbacks or both. So to sort of balance it out. So Thiago will have, usually the three midfielders have very defensive orientations. So to have one of them sort of have a more attacking responsibility, then that might impact Robertson or Trent's ability to get forward. What do you guys think about Thiago? How much of an impact do you think he's going to have?
I mean, from his first game, he started breaking records, huh?
Yeah.
He had most passes, I think, in a Premier League game. This was the record he broke. It just gives a further dimension to the team. Previously, Liverpool's midfield were more box-to-box players with Henderson and Wijnaldum.
Yeah.
So I feel like you just have that extra option of, if a game necessitates that you need more possession in the game, more control of the flow, then you have that option with you. But also Thiago, and that's one of the reasons why he couldn't really fit within the Barcelona system coming up. He's just more agile, he's more athletic, he's more direct. So he's perfect for Liverpool, and having that balance between possession, between the direct passing football.
That's probably also why he fits so well with Bayern at the time during his stay there, particularly this treble-winning team. He helped control possession, but at the same time, not in a purely ideologically tiki-taka reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah, for me, Thiago is the signing of the year. Certainly for the Premier League. I think earlier we discussed that winning mentality. This guy is a serial winner. Yeah. I think he'll elevate all the players around him. That's who United are desperate for. And the amount of money Liverpool spent to get one of the best, top 5 midfielders in the world right now, maybe. What was it, 30 million? It blows my mind. And that's the position that United are crying out for. He's phenomenal. I've got a picture on my screen right now. I'll present it of James Milner in training, just admiring Thiago's technique in his passing, and he's walking off and he's turning around and he's just admiring.
That's nice.
Perfect technique. I just think
amazing.
And maybe B, you can tell me more about this, but I think Pep Guardiola is obsessed with him, right?
Yeah, I mean, Pep immediately got the player once he went to Bayern. What's funny about Thiago is that even though he's a world-class player, but he's never costed more than £20 million in moving to any other club. I mean, he moved to Bayern because there was a clause in his Barcelona contract which meant if he didn't play a certain number of games, he could go for the cheap, and Bayern took advantage of that. So he was just a catch on the market. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame he couldn't continue with Barca. I think his problem was just having Xavi and Iniesta in the team, so he really couldn't break through. So it was just timing that made sense for him to move on. Pep obviously knew his qualities. Klopp now recognizes it as well. He's just a really good midfield player to have in any team.
Yeah. What about Jota and Minamino? So Jota had a relatively good game and then a bad game against Villa. Minamino against Arsenal in the Charity Cup thing, he had an amazing, once he came on, he turned the game around. Do you think if one of the front three in Liverpool get injured, do you think these two can step up for a prolonged period for 3-4 months in Mane or Salah's absence?
Looks like Jota can. I mean, I'm just seeing a lot of I haven't seen the guy play, but just from reading from what people have to say about him, he looks like a really decent signing. And he looks like he can cover for any of the three players. I think they have, Liverpool do have enough depth in that forward line and in the midfield now as well.
Yeah.
And also something about Thiago, but he definitely filled the gap that Liverpool needed to keep on improving their squad. Their midfield was always shaky, and people used to point that out. They just have to do something about their defense. Someone next to Van Dijk is a must. Having Gomez and Matip as your next choice centre backs just doesn't cut it for a team like Liverpool.
Yeah. But the beauty of Van Dijk is that he elevates whoever he plays with. So as soon as he came, you saw the leaps and bounds in which all of the other defenders, jumped. So, and I think the other thing with Van Dijk is that you can't have someone like Ramos next to him. You need someone who's quite young and mobile who can cover for Van Dijk, because Van Dijk is mostly intelligence and positioning. So you need someone to do the running, and I think that's why Gomez is such a perfect partner for him. And he's young, so he's like a sponge. He just absorbs whatever Van Dijk tells him to do. He's just yes sir, yes sir. So it kind of works out, I guess.
Yeah, I think Liverpool were obviously the best team last year, and I think this year they've added to that squad. I think the Aston Villa game is a complete anomaly. I don't know how. I actually liked F's explanation last week that COVID and everyone's going to blame COVID for everything for the next 12 months, but certainly COVID had potentially something to do with it. But I think they're going to walk it this season. I think they're first place. And I think a couple of weeks ago, me and F said maybe second or first. But since then, even with a 7-2 loss, which is another record breaker achievement by Liverpool, I still think that they're going to walk it this season.
I'm really excited for this weekend's match versus Everton. I don't think I've ever been this excited for a Merseyside derby, just because Everton are top of the league, funnily enough, and I think it's going to give us a good idea about both of these teams, where they're at. Liverpool, whether or not the 7-2 was an anomaly, and Everton, whether them being top of the league is kind of whether it is an anomaly or they're there to stay. They're there to at least challenge for top 4 or top 6.
I think this game is going to be telling for the rest. This game is going to be telling for the rest of the season. I don't know. I have this feeling inside me that the team that's going to win the league this season isn't going to be one of the typical 6 teams. You have a very turbulent transfer market. You have players extremely weared out from last season and playing all those different competition games.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For me, it just makes sense for one of the teams that hadn't had the pressure of last season possibly to be in that first position.
I'd understand if you said top 2, but top 6. So you're thinking someone's gonna pull Leicester this season?
I mean, either Leicester or Everton. Leicester have been surprisingly consistent since they won the league last time.
Yeah,
they've been up there challenging all the time. So I really wouldn't rule them out.
They were up until the COVID break. They were more or less challenging for the title. They weren't even challenging for top 4. They were closer to the title race than they were to the top 4 race. But since restart, they just had an abysmal return. So unfortunately for them, I was really rooting for them. So let's move on to City. First question off the top, which has been bugging me. So do you think Diaz and Laporte, do you think that's a title-winning pairing? Do you think they finally solved their biggest problem?
I mean, Laporte, if he can pull off a whole season without getting injured, maybe.
Yeah.
I really don't know what it is about Pep's game. Even though they show signs of brilliance throughout the season, but for some reason they just can't manage to be consistent throughout, apart from the season where they actually won the league. So I don't know if the weakness is in centre defence or there's something with the team in general.
In their defence, 2 seasons that they were unhumanly consistent. I think their first title win was they even had higher points than the second. I think it was 100 and then 98 the next year, the following year. But
it's true.
Yeah, maybe last year. Do you think it's something they've just gone down in quality since last season? Do you not think that last season was an anomaly more than anything else?
I mean, we're starting to see a pattern with Pep, no? Towards the third year, the team starts, degrading a little bit in quality. Maybe he's a bit too intense. Maybe his tactics can become very, too meticulous for players.
Yeah.
We know his man management skills aren't that great. So, towards the third year, I don't know. There could be a problem within the dressing room. I think we might be seeing the last year of Pep Guardiola and City. I mean, if he doesn't deliver the Champions League this season, definitely that's the end of his chapter.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think they have grown tired, because, like you said, his man management, he's too intense. And I think after a while, he kind of, there is a tendency, I suppose. I mean, it's never happened. That's the thing with him, is that he's light. He usually leaves before the team collapses. Or loses faith in him, or he loses the dressing room. But I do think if anything, this season is going to be the season.
Well, what if? And this is big hypothetical. What if they bring Messi next season? Would he stay? Would things change?
He'd definitely stay if they bring Messi, and I think they'd want him. The board would want him to stay, surely.
B, do you ever think that could happen?
Are you asking me if I think this could happen? I mean, yeah. I mean, if things don't change at Barcelona this year, definitely. I think the top destination for Messi to go would be City, and definitely the club wouldn't allow Pep to leave if they knew Messi was coming. I mean, he knows the player so well. He's the one that actually transitioned him into a false nine position, got the best out of him. It just wouldn't make sense not to have Pep as a coach if Messi does come. But I guess we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about Barcelona. But I think people are up for a disappointment come next summer. I don't think he'll be moving to City.
One last point, like a couple of questions about City's midfield. So one, like obviously, I think a key aspect in why they couldn't win the league last season was the fact that Bernard, like one, obviously we already mentioned Laporte's been injured most of the season, and he was their only good central defender, so that played a huge role. But I think another thing is that we tend to forget how important Bernardo Silva was in their title winning season. Whether he played as a winger, whether he played as a midfielder, and then last season he had a horrible season the whole year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that can be a huge difference maker if he comes back to his form. Do you think that season was a one-off, or do you think like his good season was a one-off, or his bad season was a one-off?
Yeah, I mean, it could be just a one-off thing. I think like he still has it in him, but like I think there's a problem with the whole City squad if you look at it, and like I'm thinking more about the striker position. I can't remember what happened last year exactly, but I think Aguero wasn't fit for the whole season, and like coming this year, I don't see Aguero also being fit throughout the season,
Yeah.
and Gabriel Jesus really hasn't stepped up to be like a natural successor to that position. So, like, I don't know, even if you look at the wing, Riyad Mahrez and whoever's on that wing, with the new player that they got in, what's his name, the player from Valencia. I mean, I still don't see like a top attacking squad or like top 3 attacking players that can really be a winning Premier League team or a Champions League winning team.
Yeah.
I have one thing to say about City as well, just to close it out. I think the fact that they let Sane leave was a huge mistake. That was massive. Yeah. I was lucky enough to see City play against West Ham probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a 5-1, 6-1 demolition of West Ham. I went with friends who support West Ham. I was the only one left in the West Ham like side of the stadium with about 10 minutes left to go. But Sane, KDB, and funnily enough, Antonio from West Ham all looked unbelievable in real life. And I think that's a huge failure from City to let him go, because I'm looking at their team right now, B, and I agree. It's not a scary lineup. I think KDB is the only X factor that causes so much fear in a defence and midfield, because that guy, for me, and I hate to say it with Liverpool and City, you know, not big fans of their teams, but De Bruyne is the best player in the Premier League.
Oh yeah,
by a while.
He's top 3 players in the world, I'd say.
He makes that average team into something that's special just by having him in the team.
Yeah.
So agreed with B. It's not a scary lineup, but just having him in the team makes all the difference.
I mean, I think. Foden can make a difference. Like I mentioned, Bernardo Silva, if he goes back to his league-winning form, I think he could be another X factor. And most importantly, Sterling. I think he's one of the players who kind of dropped off last season. And if he's back on top form, then, you know, we're talking 3-4 very dangerous attacking players who can, you know, get you a title if everyone's on form, you know.
No, I just wanted to say also, like, and even if we do consider that Messi might come in next season, like, someone like Messi at 33, 34 coming into the team, it's just a huge gamble, you know?
Yeah.
You can't really depend on Messi being in that number 9 or false 9 position to, you know, strengthen that attacking team. I don't know, it's just a huge gamble. I even don't see Messi necessarily being the solution.
Yeah. And I think because the thing that he can provide, I think at this age, like the one thing that he can provide is exquisite passing and through balls and you know, creating. And I think they already have, aside from Messi, probably the best creator in the world, in De Bruyne. So like it's not that he's going to bring this cutting edge, this new sort of dimension to the way they play.
Mind you, he would disrupt a lot of creativity in the team. Like, I feel like Messi, there's a really huge risk that he might overshadow De Bruyne and like really marginalize him and not bring out the best out of that player.
Because they play in the same, like, more or less when on the ball, when they're in an attacking shape, they both play in the hole. And it's the same thing that he did to Sanchez, to Neymar, to Griezmann. All these players who like to play in the number 10 position, like in between the defensive and midfield lines, that Messi's the one who you're going to anoint to play in those, you know, those positions. All right, so moving on to Chelsea, I think the biggest question on everyone's mind is which signing is going to make the biggest difference? Who do you think is going to have the biggest impact?
For me, it's a tough question. I think the 2 Germans that come in just it looks like an unbelievable signing for the future to have that connection. Those Havertz and Werner, I think they played yesterday and they both scored for Germany. So
Yeah.
it looks great for Chelsea. I think they've probably had one of the best windows. I think we have to remember that they haven't bought anyone for a couple of years now. So they were always going to spend big and go hard. But, you know, the opposite of Manchester United, they've spent a lot of money, but this time they've delivered with the goods. And I think they've given Frank Lampard every chance of being successful as a manager. And if he doesn't do it, it won't be because of ownership.
I think he had a big say in who they bought. And I think that's part of the weakness, like, a follow-up question sort of, aside from the attack, but they didn't get any defensive players. And I think Chelsea's defense, not only their defense, but also more importantly, like their defensive structure. Like even if you have the best backline in the world and the best holding midfielder, the way Lampard sets out to play and not to sort of counter-press or have scenarios worked out for when they lose the ball. Can Thiago Silva fix Chelsea's defensive issues?
I mean, I feel like Thiago Silva just brings a lot of experience, but like the aggressiveness of the Premier League, the fast players, I don't know. I'm not necessarily sure Thiago Silva can actually do that. Also, like thinking about, I don't know, like if he actually speaks proper English or not, but like can he be a proper like leading figure within the dressing room, given that he's just new to the country coming in at that age? I'm not sure.
I think he can't speak English. He speaks French. And the interesting thing I read about this is that most of the Chelsea backline, for their luck, they all speak French. Zuma, Azpilicueta used to play in France before he joined Chelsea. But yeah, I mean, you have and the goalkeeper Mendy. So you have enough French-speaking players who can either translate or just directly communicate with him. But yeah, I think he lost a lot of pace. I absolutely agree.
He's 38, I think, isn't he?
36, if I'm not
36.
mistaken.
I mean, he's just too old, I think. Like, I just remember players who like had this high caliber, but then came in, just gave a season to the clubs they moved to and went. I'm thinking of Lilian Thuram when he came to Barcelona.
Yeah. Bonucci when he joined AC Milan.
Bonucci, I mean, even though he's been revived a little bit with Juve, but still, yeah. Also, like, it just doesn't seem clear what the new players will add to the team. Like, I just don't know how they all fit together. I thought Mount was playing pretty well last year. Like, I'm not sure they just went for positions that really needed improvement. They just went for players who were there on the market. And, like, now, I don't know, it just feels a bit lost. The most player I'm excited about to see in Chelsea is Ziyech.
Yeah.
Ziyech, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
So, anyways, this is what I'm really excited about. And I'm not sure how Havertz is going to fit in with the team. But, yeah. Pulisic, Ziyech, and Werner, at least on FIFA, he's been playing really well. I don't know how. He just reminds me a little bit of Shirley. I feel like this is the level that he's going to be at in Chelsea.
They have an amazing team. And I think when they're playing against lower teams, when they, where they're expected to dominate the ball, then I think they're going to have a midfield of Kante. They're going to have two number 8s. So they're going to have Kante, Mount, and Havertz as a midfield 3. And then I think for attack, Ziyech on the right, Pulisic on the left, Havertz up top, and I think that's unstoppable attack. But it's the same sort of Man City flaw where, like, okay, you have the best attack in the world, but like, can you, if you're having a bad day, if you can't penetrate their defensive line, and then they just have one shot and they get it, they get behind your high line, then they could drop a lot of points, is what I'm saying, and they're going to ship in a lot of goals. It's a question of how much the new firepower will improve this team.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to challenge for the title?
No, I don't think so either. I mean, it's just going to be like, we're going to basically discover how the team's going to look like with them. But I think they need just a year to figure out what's the best lineup for the team with the players they have at hand. It's just going to be a discovery year, basically, and start building for next year, I think. And it could be good enough, I feel like, if they just keep on top 4 and show glimpses of, being on form. I don't think the expectation for them is to win the league this season. It's just to be better than last season and show signs of progress.
Yeah. We talked about, you're absolutely right in the sense that a lot of their purchases just seemed like an asset grab rather than a meticulous sort of plugging holes in the team. So I think Ziyech and Havertz probably are the only two that actually plugged important holes. So like they knew Willian was getting too old, they needed to replace him. Someone on the right wing, presence on the right wing, and the same is attacked. As good as Abraham was last season, he's not an elite striker. But I think they're going to benefit from having Havertz and Mount. In some situations, they can play together, and then in other situations, like we said, it's going to be a very hectic season. And I think one thing that might benefit Chelsea is the amount of depth that they have. They haven't sold much, they haven't had many departures and a huge influx. So I think Lampard's going to enjoy just rotating all of these players, making sure everyone's fresh, less injuries, higher work rate, I suppose.
It's true. For me, like, just the biggest problem is, like, I'm a little bit traditional in the sense I still believe you need a top number 9 to be established with the team to really, win stuff. And Werner, he's a really good striker, but like the position he's been playing is sort of, being accompanied with another striker at Salzburg.
Yeah.
So, having him as a sole number 9, I'm not sure you can depend on him to be that. And I think he's played on the left so far with Chelsea. Like, at least a few games he's played coming from the left. So like, it's still not clear who that number 9 is going to be. And betting on Tammy Abraham, it just won't cut it.
Yeah. But I also think, he in Leipzig, he used to play as a second striker. So just off, he's a bit less advanced than his partner. But the thing that he can do with Chelsea, the thing that I think they will do with Chelsea, is that he's going to play as a second striker without having a main striker, if that makes sense. So, like, not even a false 9 per se, but he will drop deep, he will join in the build-up, and they're going to be a very fluid attacking line. I think Pulisic is going to cut inside a lot. I think Havertz is going to make late runs into the box. So Werner's going to drop deep, and then he's going to feed through balls to Havertz. So, I think it's going to be a fluid attack. And I think Liverpool have proven, Barcelona in their heyday have proven, you don't really need a 40-goal, 30-goal a season striker to dominate or to have an impressive attacking lineup.
I mean, Liverpool have definitely proved that, no? But, like, you really need wingers that can compensate for that. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Ziyech was never much of a goal-scoring winger, but I think Havertz had. So, like, I was crunching the numbers. I think Havertz has 20 goals, something close to 20, maybe 18 or 17 goals last season, and a ton of assists. Okay. And then Werner had maybe 30-something, 35 goals. So I know the Bundesliga is different, but, like, they brought in a huge number of goals statistically if you're playing by the numbers.
So tell me something. So Havertz, is he more of a number 10 or, like, more of a winger?
Number 10. And occasionally a second striker, but his favorite position is a pure number 10.
Okay. He, like, might even pull off a Lampard. Remember Lampard when he was the top goal scorer of his team? He
would outscore Drogba most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Does anyone have anything else they want to say about Chelsea? Shall we jump to the next team?
Yeah, I've got just one last thing about Chelsea. Something that's breaking in the news recently. There's a story that's just broken a day ago about Kante Lampard falling out.
Yeah.
I think, Kante is one of the players that is integral for Chelsea. And I don't know if that understanding between Lampard and Kante is gone, does that affect them? And then the other thing I was just thinking about is, with no fans looking for most of the season, that's something at Stamford Bridge, which I think it's almost a 12th player at Stamford Bridge, that close ground, how loud it is. Do you think that will be a big effect? A lot of the players for the smaller clubs, I think when you go to a club like Chelsea or Liverpool on the top end and you see the fans, the occasion gets to you. And the big players, they're the ones that have the strongest nerves, like Bruno Fernandes penalties, Lionel Messi final seconds in the match. They still stay cool, calm, collected. Aguero. So one of the reasons we're seeing, more goals, more players playing well in this bubble situation is that it's more like a training game. And these professional footballers in training, they can hit perfect passes and perfect shots at will. So the gap between the top players and the bottom players is shortening. So I think we're going to see some strange results this year. And I think
we already have
Chelsea at home. Yeah, I think Chelsea at home might be not as good as they typically see.
You'd be surprised. I think I read something about Chelsea. They had a horrible home spell last season. Like their numbers. They I think they got more points away than they did at home last season.
That's interesting.
So I don't know how much that might affect Chelsea per se specifically, but I absolutely agree that
could it get worse then? Could it get even worse? Who knows?
Who knows? All right. So moving on to Spurs. there's some people who've been talking about Spurs and touting them as potential title challengers. Do any of you see any merit in that?
Yeah, I'll just say that I have no idea about the players that they signed this summer, but I just know that they have made some good signings.
You know about one of
like,
them.
I mean, I know about one of them, and like definitely Gareth Bale. The thing is, like, we don't know if he'll recover his best form when he was at Tottenham or not.
Yeah.
I mean, logically, if you look at it age-wise, he's still within the age where he might reach that peak. We know that he's never been as happy as comfortable in Real Madrid. So, like, coming back home, he might be relatively home. He might be more comfortable in that. We know that Mourinho can bring the best out of him. But I'm just taking an indication of how Mourinho has been really showing confidence in that he's happy with the squad that he has. He's been happy about the transfer market. They might actually pull it off. They might put off the top 4.
Yeah, I think top 4 would be a good result for them as well. I think they'll be in touching distance in the title at Christmas, and then I think you'll start to see just slowly drift away. Yeah, unless Bale comes in and has a season of his life, I think that could be the only X factor. They did just smash Manchester United 6-1. They do look very good right now. They signed Reguilon as well for a very, very good price from Real Madrid. I think that's a smart signing. Me and F have spoken before about Son, and we think he's, such a top player.
I think this is going to be his breakthrough season. I mean, he was already a star, but I think he's going to have a Salah Mane level season this year.
Yeah, agreed. I think I honestly think he would be in my, if I had to pick a Premier League team of the year from last year, or even from the last 2-3 years, he would probably be in my top 11.
Yeah.
I think Dele Alli, I think that's a tricky situation. I think that's not ideal and maybe one of the setbacks. I still think they have some poor players. I think Eric Dyer is not a top player. I think their goalkeepers aren't the top players. I think their fullbacks aren't ideal. I think Reguilon obviously is a good replacement. I don't think Lamela is top class.
Lo Celso is not top class, but Lo Celso is a good midfielder, to be fair. And it appears to me, because you mentioned fullbacks, there are other fullback. I think it's Connor Cody. I'm not sure, or it's someone else. He was the Wolves right back, and he used to play as a wing back as well. So, and I think Mourinho is going to go the Liverpool route, which I think really suits the personnel at Tottenham. So I think the United match, they actually dropped Dele Alli, and they played with more or less 3 hardworking midfielders. Højbjerg, he had a horrible first match against Everton, but since then, he was, for me, against United, he was man of the match. He's super impressive. And Ndombele stepping up as well to insane levels. Like he's the Ndombele we thought he would be when they signed him. And then you have, for the third spot, you have someone like Lo Celso, who's sort of a mix. He has a lot of flair, but he also has good work rate. Or Moussa Sissoko, or someone else can fill in that third spot. And I think automatically, by having all the whole midfield line being quite defensive, that gives a lot of freedom for the fullbacks to attack.
And so far we haven't even said Harry Kane, because like Harry Kane, I feel is just a person that will carry the team because he's such a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
If really he stays fit throughout the season, he's a goal scorer. He can set up goals. There was this game, I can't remember if it's this season or towards the end of last season, but like where he set up around 4 goals for Son.
Yeah. We talked about it.
It was this season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was this season.
So man, Harry Kane is like a star player, one of the best players in the world even. And like he's a person that can carry the team towards, being towards their up for, even contesting for the league.
Yeah.
The only problem, even though he's the advantage for Tottenham, but he's also a problem in itself, is Mourinho. I don't know if SNF you've watched the Amazon documentary for Spurs.
No, I haven't, sadly.
But man, like really, I mean, it's basically the Mourinho documentary. It's not the Tottenham Spurs documentary.
The Mourinho show.
And like, he's such an interesting character, but also you really get an inside glimpse into how sour Mourinho can get and how poisonous he can get into the dressing room when things aren't going well at the club. Yeah. And like, if at any stage throughout the season Tottenham reach that, then they just enter into a spiral that I'm not sure Mourinho is a coach that can bring them out of it.
Yeah.
So at a season where you have coronavirus, where you have players like Harry Kane and Gareth Bale, whose top players are very injury prone, expect that you might get enter into these sort of cycles and where things could get very sour.
Yeah, I mean the interesting thing about Mourinho is that he's always kind of happy to be there when he first joins a team, I think it takes him a couple of years until he starts turning toxic. So that's one of the things that's giving me high hopes for Tottenham. The fact that he hasn't even closed the full year yet, and he has the players he wants. We mentioned Harry Kane, and we talked about this on our last episode, that the fact that Harry Kane is playing as a false nine a lot this season, I find that very interesting, and I think sort of like similar to what Benzema used to do for Madrid in their peak, or maybe Firmino, what he's doing now. He's playing as a false nine, he's dropping deep, and then he's giving, and I think that's going to suit Bale a lot. Like, it's already, we've seen what it's done with Son, and I think that's really going to suit Bale off the right to cut inside and score. So I think we won't see the ugly side of Mourinho until next season, but who knows? I mean, since his Madrid stint, I think he's really changed. He's no longer the sort of... I think he's gone too old and he can't really connect with millennial players anymore. They're just too different culturally. I think it worked with the Chelsea team. It worked with Inter. More older generation who kind of that rough method kind of worked with them. But who knows? I mean, once he's on a positive momentum, then maybe it'll work. Another thing I was thinking about is same question I asked about City. So it seems that Mourinho's stuck with Eric Dyer and Sanchez as his defensive pairing, and I think that's the only weakness point to me. I think the midfield is great, the fullbacks are great, the attack is great. Do you think these two are good enough?
Eric Dyer and Sanchez, I'm not sure. Where do you think that they'd be in a defensive mid position or as centre backs? Because
no, they're the centre back pairing.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Dyer is just a really good makeshift player. He can fit in defensive mid or as a centre back. But it's definitely a weakness. Alderweireld, isn't he playing?
No, from what I remember, he's barely played this season. I think most matches it's been Dyer and Sanchez as the centre back pairing.
What do you think?
Yeah, I like Sanchez. I just think Dyer is not. One or two games, like B says, you can stick him in and he'll do a job against a mid-table team. But I think, again, you play against Barcelona, you play against Real Madrid, you play against Juventus, then Eric Dyer's real quality is going to make an impact.
Yeah.
When it's about the inches, I think his football brain isn't quick enough, his talent isn't there. I don't know. I don't rate Eric Dyer at all. United were going to buy him for £50 million,
His
more than
was
2
really
years
high,
ago, and that just shows United's. That just shows United's.
I mean, I know we moved on from United, but I just like to take a small banter at something. I just wish you guys have gotten Dembele from Barcelona. Man, what a flop he would have been.
He's terrible, right? He's terrible. That would have been one of the worst signings.
He is such an
in
amazing
history,
player, but he's the most careless player you could ever see. So lazy for trainings, no work ethic whatsoever. And he's been out injured for the past two seasons. So I don't know. I think he's done. I mean, obviously it's too early to judge.
And he didn't want to come to the club. Why would you bring someone who doesn't want to come to the club as a replacement? Yeah, I don't know. It would have been terrible. I think I'm glad that
Barcelona
we didn't get anyone.
Are just so sad to have him because
him.
he's been fucking the club in their transfer policies for the past 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was the guy that basically didn't allow Neymar to come to the team because Barcelona needed to offload the player for wages and for just some cash to buy Neymar, and he didn't want to move. And it happened again this year, either with Depay coming in or anyone else. He's just been it's just been a really annoying piece for Barcelona. They haven't been able to know how to get rid of him. So United would have been the perfect solution, but even Dembele didn't want to go to United. I mean, that's a little bit telling, I guess.
No. Exactly. That shows where we are at a club right now.
So, does anyone have anything else they want to say about Tottenham before we move on to the next team?
Go for it.
So, Arsenal, as far back as I started watching football, probably, the one thing that Arsenal were always crying out for was to have a solid defensive midfielder. Have they solved this 10-year problem with Partey?
I mean, I thought Arsenal were basically crying out to have a player for every position they have. But yeah, I mean, looking at Arteta and Torreira, they just weren't players who would really be able to hold that position. Partey might be an interesting signing, even though he hasn't really broken into Atletico's first team until last year. So he hasn't been so long playing at that playing consistently throughout the season. But it might be a solution. It would be interesting to see.
I think the midfield for Atletico as well is an interesting thing. I think that's where they have the most depth. They have so many Saul, Koke, Marcus Llorente. They have so many good midfield players that kind of forces Diego Simeone to keep rotating. But what do you think, As, about Partey? Do you know much about him? Do you have any opinions on?
Yeah, he's extremely highly rated, and I think if he lives up to what they think he can bring, I think United would have dreamed about having Partey join us. I think that's the exact position where I know Arsenal's had a 10-year problem, like you said, but United have a problem right now there, and I'm quite impressed with Arsenal to get this done. It happened at the end of the transfer window, almost the last 2-3 days, right? So they got it over the line.
What's interesting is that apparently, like, the main reason he wanted to leave Atletico is that he doesn't really see himself as a defensive midfielder, but he felt that Diego Simeone sort of shoehorned him into that position. So I don't think,
Interesting.
Yeah. So with Ceballos to sort of play as clearly the most advanced midfielder. So I don't know what Partey. Do you think so? They usually play with a 3-4-3, so they only play with two midfielders more or less in their team most of the time. Do you think now with Partey coming in, they're going to switch to a 3, or do you think Partey is just going to slot in the same system and play alongside Ceballos?
It looks like Arteta is playing mostly with a 3 defensive formation so far.
Yeah, 3 at the back, yeah.
So I feel like it's just going to continue, and he'll just be, I don't know, I feel like over the past 10 years we've really been seeing a transition into a style of football that's more, less of an emphasis on midfield and just trying to get the ball from defense straight to the attacking side of the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like Partey, he has that defensive side to play when the ball is not with them, but like when he's in an attacking position, he might be able to be that sort of player that offers a quick transition.
And he's got a good passing range as well for a CDM. Like he likes a through ball. I wonder how many assists he got last year. I'm just looking at the stats now.
Not that many. I don't think Atletico scored that many goals, sadly.
They are defensive minded. But I'm just reading his stats. He makes, in last year in the Champions League, he did 3.6 tackles in a game, which is pretty high for a CDM. And he made 1.6 key passes per game. And a key pass means leads to a goal scoring chance. So that's pretty good stats. I mean, even for a central defender, that's a lot of tackles in a match.
I mean, it tells you something. Simeone was furious when basically the player was allowed to leave. I'm not sure if they activated his release clause.
Yeah, they did, because Atletico didn't want to negotiate.
But Simeone was absolutely furious. So it tells you something about how much the Arsenal wanted the player and how much Simeone didn't really want to let him go. So it must be something exciting.
Yeah. Do you think the Arsenal board should expect top 4 after their spending? I mean, it's not that much compared to the rest of the Premier League, but to their levels, it is quite shocking for what we've seen from Arsenal.
I'm not sure whether they're right to expect that, but I do think they would be able to pull off a top 4. Arteta reminds me a little bit of Klopp when he first entered Liverpool. When he first came to Liverpool, he didn't really have the right squad yet. He just really brought his dynamism, his energy to the club. He's definitely instilled a winning mentality to the club, and you can see that by the wins they've had since last season until this one. I mean, they've really made important wins against Chelsea, against City, against United, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he beat all of the top 6 teams, if I'm not mistaken. And he hasn't even, done a full year yet. And he doesn't have his team.
That's the thing, we look a lot at squad makeups and names on paper of players. And this is the determinant factor for thinking that the team is going to basically be up there or not. But really, there's a lot that happens in the background. And having winning mentality in the right environment in the dressing room is such a major factor. Arteta seems to be bringing that.
Yeah, I think he has a huge winning mentality, and I also think he's really detailed in his tactics, and he knows exactly what he wants, what he expects from the players. He's quite good at communicating that and drilling that into the team. And most importantly, I think since early Wenger even, he's the first coach Arsenal had that I felt had a vision. So he knows what he's building towards, not only in the short term, but he looks as though he has some sort of long-term image of what he wants the team to be.
And he's not departing from the identity of the club. He's basically continuing an Arsene Wenger legacy.
Yeah.
Beautiful football, passing game, winning not just for the sake of results, but for the sake of playing style. So like it's not foreign to the identity of the club, and that's why I feel like it could be a successful formula.
Very true. They have quite a big basket of young talent. Saliba, Gabriel, Maitland-Niles, Saka and Ketia, Martinelli. Which of these do you guys think is going to have the most explosive season, if any?
I feel like Saka has been playing more regularly. If I'm going to bet on one player, it could be Saka, I guess. For the rest of the players, I don't know. I don't see Martinelli yet breaking into becoming a starter. Yeah, Saka seems to be the most exciting. Poor Pepe.
Not even in the conversation at this point. Yeah, I think Pepe is just another Dembele, sadly, in my books.
So much hype before when he came in. I think everyone was slightly jealous as well. He looked like a player.
Doesn't seem like he's gonna be anything. I think Gabriel. I think Gabriel is like what they've been looking for as well.
Gabriel is exciting.
Very young, but he, very assured, very confident defender. You can see a huge difference with him there, and you don't usually see someone so young as a centre back making such an immediate impact. But for me, that's my pick. I think for the most exciting.
I think he would walk into a lot of teams right now. And he's young, like you said. How old is he?
I think he's a teenager. I think he's 19 or 20.
I think he's 22, but he's still unbelievably young. Big guy, 6'3", just intimidating. Like Arsenal used to have a really big team. I don't know if you remember, but when they had Bergkamp and Vieira, their team just made all the other teams look like schoolboys playing football with them, and bringing in someone. Another Brazilian, another young talent. I think again, slightly jealous from a United perspective of Gabriel coming in.
But also, I feel like let's not be too optimistic about the prospects of Arsenal, because when you see a player like Holding managing to start a game, then something's
I don't think that. I think they will do the work. I think last year they were 8th and the bottom of the top 6 in quotation marks. Am I right? I don't think they're going to do miles better than what they did last year. Honestly, I don't know whether we've covered. I think you probably want to cover Everton slightly and Leicester and maybe Leeds F. But, just for me and my top 6, I'll just quickly go through what I think their top 6 is going to be. And Arsenal aren't going to be in the top 4, in my opinion. I think the top 2 is going to be between Manchester City and Liverpool. And at the moment, it's a flip of a coin. And I know that winning the title back-to-back of the Premier League is extremely difficult. So I appreciate Liverpool have got a tough challenge ahead of them. I think Man City don't look polished right now. This is their year if they wanted to take it with the players they have. But I'm going to go for Liverpool walking it again this year. For some reason, I just think they're going to win, and they're going to win well. I think Man City's going to come second. I think Chelsea's going to come third. I think United are going to do terrible. They're going to be 8th, 9th until, most of the season. I think they're going to bring Pochettino and a key signing in January. And I think they're going to clinch top 4. Optimistic, but I think they're going to get top 4. Then I think it's going to be Tottenham. And then I think it's going to be Everton. And then I think Arsenal, Leicester, Leeds in the next positions in any order.
Interesting.
It seems United fans are as delusional as their club leadership.
What you say? That you only meant well, 'cause you did. What you say?
It really might be a whole structural problem.
Let me tell you why.
Going up from the top until the fan base.
Zero expectation management.
30 seconds why. I think when we bring in a new... do you remember we brought in Ollie last time and we were really, really in the low 11, 12, 13 and then I think 17 games unbeaten, a really nice winning streak. I think something that Chelsea know, you bring in a manager, you're going to get a fake bump in performance. It's just a fake bump. Fair. Bruno's pissed off, Pogba's pissed off. At the end of the day, our midfield is pretty strong. We do have a strong midfield and we have an exciting attacking team. Defence can be fixed or at least plastered with a good manager. I don't think Ollie is a good enough tactical manager to do that for the defence that we have right now. But if you bring in someone like Pochettino and you just, for me, I think you bring Luke Shaw, you pull in Luke Shaw as a central defender. I think then you partner him with Maguire, Bailly, or Lindelof, and then you bring in Telles at left back. Then I think a manager can work with that. And then if the team clicks, I promise you guys, like that midfield with Donny van der Beek, Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba, that is a scary midfield, and that should perform well. And I think that's better than Everton. I think that's better than Leicester. I think that's better than Arsenal. A lot of teams that I think that you guys are predicting will be above United, and I think you'll be surprised.
I think in your last podcast episode you were talking about the rise and fall of empires, and you know. I feel like when you reach a stage of someone calling a duo of Matic and Pogba a good midfield, then you're definitely seeing the start of the decline.
Did I say Matic? Did I say the words Matic? I didn't say it. And there's a lot of caveats to my top four, but that's what they are.
Fair enough. I mean, look, I'll be very, very honest. They might actually pull a surprise. I still, judging from what I saw last season, Bruno Fernandes, Rashford and Martial, there's definitely a lot that could be... that they could offer. They just need a complete gel around them that could facilitate them doing that.
Yeah. So moving on to the best of the rest, other potential contenders. So I had Everton, Leicester and Leeds down in that order. I think Everton are going to be what Leicester were last season. I think Leicester are going to be what Wolves were last season. And I think Leeds are going to be what Sheffield were last season.
Fair.
What do you think about that?
I mean, we haven't even talked about Wolves yet, and we weren't even considering them as part of the teams we want to talk about. But Wolves are definitely up there. I don't think they've had a major change in squad. Maybe Jota was like a big hit, but they still have their striker who's really good. They have, what's his name, Traore.
Yeah. So
like Wolves are definitely up there. But I'm just really, really excited to see what comes out of Leeds and Marco Bielsa. This is the first year where I start having a fantasy team, naturally, I found myself having 3 players in my team from the Leeds team.
Hopefully attackers. I don't think they're going to have many clean sheets.
Oh, yeah. No, they won't have a lot of clean sheets at all. In the first game against Liverpool is just an indication of that. But Bielsa, man, I mean, you can definitely bet on Leeds giving something exciting this season.
Yeah, and that's basically why I thought they would be what Sheffield were last season. I think... sort of a revolutionary force, Sheffield with their tactics as well. Like nobody expected them to play the way they played with overlapping centre-backs. And, sort of in the conversation for top 6, but not really. And I think that's a fair expectation to have for Leeds. Hopefully they can build on that in the next season, particularly if Bielsa stays. But out of these 3 and perhaps Wolves as well, do you think any of these 4 can challenge for the top 6 realistically?
It's really starting to become a crowded top 6. Huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, basically, let's discount United and consider that they're going to be 9th or 10th in the league this season. Yeah, I could definitely see Leeds, Wolves, any one of those teams basically filling in.
Yeah, same. What about Everton? Don't you think? Because I think they look like a top 4 team. I know it's very early to judge, but I really have a lot of high hopes for them.
They're currently first of the league. I personally believe in strong beginnings to be an indication of what the team might end up being in the league. As long as Everton have had that strong start, and that comes with a major shift and change within the current squad, with having James Rodriguez coming in, their striker is completely on form.
Yeah.
And you have a coach like
Ancelotti
with a winning mentality. Yeah, I wouldn't discount him at all.
I mean, Ancelotti had a very disappointing. His last 2 spells were quite disappointing with Bayern and with Napoli. I think he got very unceremoniously sacked both times. Do you think his work so far and potentially what he might achieve this season, would that warrant a return for him as on the conversation of the top managers?
I feel like just like with any top coach, if you have the other factors in place, you have a strong squad, you have a strong structure, other teams aren't doing so well. If they do hit top form, a top coach like him can definitely latch onto that and,
add
to that and bring that winning mentality. So, he can definitely still put it off.
similar to, who was it? The one that the last treble with Bayern, the 2013 one.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good example,
Yeah.
actually. What was his name?
Anyway, that
Good.
guy.
Him.
Yeah, let's just call him him.
Yeah, Joop Heykens.
Yeah, Job Hinks. Yeah, that's the one.
Joop Heynckes. That's it.
I think he won a Champions League with Madrid in the 90s. So like he was an old, like already by the time he won the treble, he was an old school coach and people were writing him off. But so I think, like you said, if all of the circumstances are there, then you never know. They might do it. So what's your final predictions for, let's say, top 6 or top 8? How do you think the table is going to pan
Ranking?
out?
Oof. I think I agree with us. I see Liverpool winning the league again this season. So let's put, even though like their 7-2 loss against Aston Villa, I've never heard of that. A winning team, having such a loss in the season and going on to win the league. But like, let's still put them there. Liverpool, City, Arsenal.
Third.
Yeah,
Okay.
Arsenal third. Tottenham, Chelsea, or Chelsea, Tottenham. And then Everton. Yeah, I think that's how I'd rank my top 6.
Okay, interesting. I had City is first. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm gonna regret saying this. But yeah, I felt City are gonna win the title. I think Spurs are gonna come second.
Fair.
Liverpool third, Chelsea fourth.
Liverpool third.
Yeah. I think even though they had a much better summer than City, but there's just something about, I think they've been found out. I think people have sort of like, you see it with Bielsa, you see it with Aston Villa. Teams sort of appear to have figured out how to take advantage of their weaknesses or their weak spots. And I feel bad saying this because I think Klopp is one of the best tacticians in the world, so I think he might tweak his team, because the Liverpool today is not the same as the Liverpool of his first 2 seasons when he first joined. They had a very different playing style. And the thing I really admire about Klopp is, maybe similar to Ferguson, is that he's a very adaptable, very forward-looking coach. So,
But two interesting things to say about that. First is definitely we've been seeing a pattern where teams that come with a new style of football that add a certain edge, we see other teams do catching onto that after 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And Klopp has been with the club for around that time. So like, it does make sense for teams to start, finding a trick or a gap into how to break that.
yeah.
But another thing to say about that is, have you seen these recent comments from Klopp's previous number 2, from his previous assistant?
Yeah.
So just like for people listening in to know, so he's basically saying that he was the mastermind, the person behind all the different tactics, and Klopp was just a front for
Just the cheerleader.
all those different tactics that he was coming up for, just a cheerleader. So I think he moved out of the club last year at some point last season, or the season before.
I think the season before. I think from the start of the title-winning season, he wasn't there. So that kind of makes me feel he was more bitter than he was...
I mean, he could have built the foundations for the team.
Perhaps,
but
yeah.
now when you have players like Thiago coming in and possibly a change in the makeup and the structure and the style of play of the team, can Klopp be the one that does that without his tactical number 2 mastermind? That's a question mark as well.
His current number 2 is actually quite well respected or held in well regard. I think Pep Linders.
Okay.
But he's also someone who is very spoken highly of. So I don't know. But I do think they have the potential to change and prove me wrong. And I hope so, because frankly, I think they're my favorite team in England. So I think, with Thiago having a very different profile, maybe they could do it again. But I don't know why I'm kind of being cynical, I suppose. So that's why I had them as third. And also just judging on you remember how they capitulated in Dortmund in his last year?
Yeah.
They were 7th. So
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of have a feeling that's it. Like his enthusiastic shtick has run its course.
And he wants to end on a high. He's been saying that after Liverpool, he's not planning on coaching any other team. So, I feel like that gives an indication about how much importance he places on his legacy.
Yeah.
And, when someone gets that cocky, to be honest, when his reputation is at the stake and things aren't turning so well, it could just, end up being a spiral as well within the team.
Absolutely. I always had a feeling he has unfinished business. I always had a feeling, because the thing I love about him is that he's such a working class coach. Like, he loves going to cities with a big working class, and a big part of his sort of mission is to bring joy to these people. after what life has thrown at them or capitalism has thrown at them. So I always felt he would join Barcelona, especially once the changes happen, knock on wood, once there's a new director, that Klopp would go to Barcelona and that would be his last hurrah, sort of to rescue them, win them another league title, maybe sort of help the post-Messi transition, build a new team, and then that would be his departure.
I mean, do you think... Alright, then we're just gonna say what's happening right now. There's just this noise that came out that I've never heard this in the flat.
Very trippy. It's like
feels
aliens.
like someone just brought up... Yeah, someone feels like brought a motorcycle to their flat. But like, do you see Klopp being in such a rigid ideological club as Barca? I feel like he would just feel so constrained within the limits of the club that I don't know. I just don't see it.
I think since Luis Enrique, the sort of possession football has been gone.
That's true.
They've been much more direct for the past 5 years, and Koeman, I think his most successful spell before Barcelona were the Netherlands and Southampton, and they both played very very Klopp-esque football.
So are we transitioning to talking about Barcelona now?
Let's round off our predictions then. And we can fully go on to Barcelona. So Liverpool third, I think I'm going to regret saying this. Chelsea fourth, Arsenal fifth, Everton sixth, Leicester seventh, and United eighth. What's your prediction for top scorer in the Premier League? Who do you think?
Top scorer? I feel I might say either Harry Kane, Vardy, or that guy from Everton, the top goal scorer right now.
Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, these would be my three picks.
Interesting.
One of them.
I had Son. I think he might have maybe Salah, maybe Vardy as you know, second or third picks. Who do you think is going to be signing of the season in the Premier League? I already gave my pick. If you remember, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, my first option I was thinking about Thiago, but like honestly, Gareth Bale. Maybe. Maybe. Yeah. He might add that, extra something that Tottenham needs to really challenge for the titles. Maybe.
I can see that being the case actually. If he manages to stay fit, or if Marino manages him well. I mean, they were doing quite well with Lucas, so I think it's good enough for them that they already have another option. I had Alan on, and because I love defensive midfielders, my second option was also a defensive midfielder, Højbjerg for Tottenham. After seeing his performances in the first few matches, I think he's gonna have an insanely he's gonna make a big difference for Tottenham.
Very possible.
Which team do you think is gonna be the flop of the season? Now that S is gone, I think we can.
I feel like that's been obvious from exactly. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's been obvious from what we've been saying so far. United just haven't done well in the transfer market.
Yeah.
The club just seems to be in complete disarray. Yeah, I mean, it's good if they finish top 10 this season.
Yeah. For the same reason, like I didn't even pick United because it felt like a given to me. It felt like I wouldn't consider it as a flop because I already expected them to sort of finish maybe outside of the top 6 or outside of the top 4 at least. So I had Chelsea on because a lot of the talk with all of the signings, basically based on the expectations on Chelsea rather than, so based on the money they spent, I think Chelsea are going to be considered a flop. I think they might finish 4th. They might even struggle to be in the top 4 given how strong the competition is this season. Who do you think is going to be the flop signing of the season?
Havertz, the guy from Chelsea. Possibly. I mean, it's going to be one of the Chelsea signings just because they've made so many major signings and one of them is bound to turn out.
Yeah. I initially had Havertz on, but after much meditation, I switched to Thiago Silva. And again, not that I think he's going to be horrible, but I think, people always talk about him as top 5 centre-backs, and I think he's going to be found out. The pace of the Premier League, the way Chelsea play with such a high defensive line, I think he's going to have a troubling adjustment in Chelsea.
Like, how bad can a defender be? Like, he might flop in a few games, but like to be the worst signing, I mean, he has to pull off a David Luiz for him to win that title.
No, I never imagined David Luiz for him, but I think again, just measured against the expectations and not measured against he's not going to be a Harry Maguire level flop, but but the expectations, the standard is much higher for Thiago Silva compared to Maguire, which is I guess why I picked him. I have Project Big Picture here. Do you want to just...
Yeah, I mean, you said you were going to do some research about it and like try to find out a little bit more. So it'd just be interesting to know more, to know more about it.
Okay, so what I found, my first observation is that it's hilarious that the two clubs that are pushing for it are Liverpool and Man United, and it's ironic that they both have American owners. And this is basically the COVID bailout or the 2008 bailout. It's what American billionaires are used to. Just to, like, whenever there's a crisis, just to consolidate their power, to get more money or whatever. So I found that an interesting observation. But to go back to the details, I think what I found was the initial plan was for the EPL in itself, so the Premier League as a organization, to pay 50 million as a what's it called, like a support payment. And then to give 100 million in loan, sort of a very easy loan, let's say, to the smaller clubs, to the EFL clubs. And there were a lot of delays in working that out. So after the delays, that's when United and Liverpool, they stepped up, and they gave their own proposal of 250, so the number almost doubled. In addition to that, they also promised the EFL clubs higher annual revenue, so they'd get a much higher portion of the Premier League TV rights itself. Okay. But there's obviously the trouble is there's a lot of...
The flip side.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Here's what they get in return is the Big Six could veto. They'd have a lot of decision-making powers. One of them, they could veto the purchase of an EPL club. So they could
really?
veto... Yes. That's one of the conditions.
So you're saying basically if they see a club in threat about like being bought and possibly being revamped, they'd actually stop that.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And obviously they're going to come up with their fake reasons and say, oh, we don't want this person or that person. But yeah, it's so that nobody can challenge the status quo. Another thing is that the Premier League will be reduced to 18 teams, similar to the Bundesliga. Yeah. And 2 teams would be automatically relegated instead of 3. And then you know how there's a playoff for the final, usually for the final. So the let's say if it's 18, the 16th position team would join the playoff. Okay. So if they win, they stay. If they win the playoff, if they lose, then the team from the EFL would jump up to.
About the 18 team point. To be honest, I see like a point in reducing the number of teams to reduce the number of matches that teams play, because the Premier League has become so intense on players that I really feel like they do need a break, and like reducing the number of matches with less teams could actually cut it.
Absolutely.
But on the other side of things, it is something that will benefit top elite clubs playing a number of competitions against the other teams. Because, basically they're the ones that would benefit most from it. And, as part of the whole package, it's just another factor that consolidates them being, on top. And I feel like that's a cost you have to pay for a club having so much money, being able to maintain such a high squad, playing more matches and being weared out in the season compared to other teams is something you have to,
And that's what sort of balances the playing field in a certain way.
Exactly.
And more, like I think in the past 5 or 6 years, the debate around the big teams has been around their rotation management. So how they can manage, rather than just having the best 11, the discussions being about having a good 16 or 17 players, so you can keep everyone fresh. But speaking of freshness and fitness, another thing they wanted is to cancel the Carabao Cup.
Yeah.
And what's most interesting to me is the way they leverage their position to force or to try to force this move is that, so they're squeezing out the other 14 teams in the Premier League, but they're gaining the support of 72 clubs of the EFL. So it's a weird coalition when you think about it, where they're desperate for the money, so they'll take any conditions. And this basically strips the non-top 6 teams in the Premier League from any having any clout or decision making. It's essentially like the disappearance of a middle class, but in exchange, the working class, they sort of get benefits, and the elites tighten their position at the top. It's it's like the New Deal in America or something, like a very interesting...
I agree.
So that's basically it. I had a good quote from The Guardian, but since we still have a lot to cover, I think I'm just going to ignore that.
Just because we have a lot to cover, what do you think we have a part 2 in this?
Sure.
Because basically, it would be interesting to also talk about, this project with S.
Yeah.
So, we could also connect that to you talking about the Spanish League and then talking about the Champions League, because there's a lot to cover still, and like it definitely makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's good that we can just end it with the Premier League and then
exactly.
Yeah, and then we can cover the rest of Europe and the Project Big Picture. I suppose we can touch on that again.
I mean, what's interesting about Project Big Picture is that everything we've said so far, there's also going to be more to talk about in the next episode, because there are going to be new developments and like new reactions to it. So it'll be nice to have a continuation of it.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds great. And I think we have almost 2 hours now.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So like just what's exactly. Yeah. So just like what's interesting, so that listeners can actually listen to this. We were planning on having just an hour to talk about all of this, and like at some point, us just basically bailed out, and he's like, my lunch hour is done from work, so I need to go back. So it's just interesting.
And we've been soldiering through.
And yeah, it's like 10:45 here, and like my plan was to start having dinner at around 9:30. So it's interesting that the conversation has taken up that much.
Yeah. All right, so as usually does the wrapping things up. I'm just gonna have a go, I suppose. That was it, folks. Thank you for listening. Tune in again for part 2, where we're gonna talk about La Liga. We're gonna talk about Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico, some of the other Champions League contenders like Juventus and Bayern and PSG and their leagues. Well, sort of a given that they're gonna win their leagues, but just to sort of touch on that. And probably Champions League predictions as well, and general overall predictions for the entire top 5 European leagues. Thank you for listening. B, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure and an honor to have you as our first guest, and very, very fun to have someone new sort of, change up the dynamic. It was a fun, and we never recorded for more than 2 hours in our lives in the past 4 episodes, so that in itself is a cool thing.
Thank you for having me. I mean, I just finished a half bottle of whiskey while we're having the conversation as well, so that just shows how fun it is.
Are you drunk right now?
Beautiful.
The guy is drunk, but there he goes.
All right.
Cool.
That's it.
See you next episode.